Hi everyone, this is Sweta Regmi joining you live from Canada. It is 8:07 Eastern Standard Time. Where are you guys watching me from? Please drop it down in the comment and I'll pull it up on the screen as well. And if you're a job seeker, you are interviewing right now, there are some techniques I'm going to teach you today. How do you add the humor in interviews? And also, how do you ask questions in a very strategic manner so that way you get the inside information before you go ahead and answer questions for the next one. You don't want to be order taker on an interview. You don't want to be. You just don't want to sit there and just wait for next questions, and next questions. So let me see if anybody is watching me. Put the comments in there so I know what's going on. So at least I can start the process moving. I'm going to go back and see if I am live, and it looks like I'm live. There are people watching me, but drop down the comments. Where are you guys watching me from? And if you're interviewing right now, currently, I want you to say yes. Number one, say number one on the comment and say that to me is you're interviewing right now. So I'm talking to the right people. And if you're not interviewing and if you plan to switch the job later on, you can also put one in there as well. So the comments are not coming in. I think it's probably delayed. I'm just going to double check. Everything is all right. And we can move on. I think, okay, Pradeep, I can see your comment right there. All right, perfect. You're watching me from New Jersey. That's amazing. I'm just going to make sure everything is good to go before I start. Let me double check. Bear with me. I think I'm live, but I want to make sure. Randall is watching me from New Orleans. Hi, Randall. All right, so LinkedIn is on. So this is being streamed on Facebook and YouTube as well. For those of you who do not know, we do have a YouTube channel as well. You can go ahead and subscribe. I am going to put the banner in there for you so you know which one, just in case. If you want to go and watch it later on, it would be right there recorded as well. If you're watching me on replay, you can type in replay, so that helps me understand. Now, who am I? For those people who don't know me, probably the recent followers, I'm a career consultant. I teach do's and don'ts to job seekers in Canada, especially to newcomers and the laid off workers and people who are not happy, who want to go where they're going to be celebrated, who want to switch. I teach all of that in my program, Job Search Strategy. One size does not fit all. And I've walked in your shoes. I was a newcomer 21 years ago in Canada, and I've also been laid off. I was in a hiring manager for more than 13 years in Fortune 500. And I've seen the other side of the table as well. Plus, I've seen the job seeker side as well. Right after I got laid off, it was very hard to bounce back. So I bounced back and I developed all those strategies, and I teach all those framework which helped me get multiple offers. And I teach all of that in my program right now. So it looks like everything is good to go. Comments are pouring in. All right. Nishant is watching me from UK as well. All right, so I see LinkedIn user. I don't know your name. It says, I am a newcomer from Winnipeg. Welcome. So who else is here from Canada? I see Toronto. People are watching me from Toronto. It's coming back as a LinkedIn user. Alfonso is watching me from Canada. All right, so a lot of Canadian in house. Shout out Canadians. So it's summer right now where I'm residing. All right, so let's start without delaying this. So people who are interviewing right now, I want you to apply these techniques that I can teach you today. And it worked for me as a hiring manager at the receiving end when I was hiring people. And also when I got laid off and when I went back to the workforce as well, it definitely worked for me. And you know, one of the techniques, add the humor into the interview, but you got to be very strategic about it. I am a believer on giving the energy back. See how I'm talking right now. How am I talking right now? I'm moving my hand. My body languages are quite like I look approachable. Do I look approachable? Right? I'm smiling. Look at my face. I'm smiling. Now let me just try this approach, okay? I'm doing this right now for my viewer right now. Do you feel you're welcome right now? Yes, you do, right? Okay. I'm moving my hand. I am moving my hand. Okay. This is who I am. I'm not faking it. This is how I talk. All right. So this is exactly what you're going to be in an interview. But again, don't push it. If it's not you, then probably practice those body language. Nonverbal cues are something that there's a perception about you. So what hiring managers are looking for? Hiring managers are looking for the fit. Do you fit into that team? Do they trust you? Now, let me give you an example. I want you to put yourself in hiring manager's shoes, okay? So let's say that, who have kids? Do you have kids? Put number 2 if you have kids. Number 2 if you have kids. Number 2 if you have kids. All right, for those of you who have kids, you wanted to probably hire some babysitter. Let's talk about that. You wanted someone to watch your kids. What are you gonna do? You're gonna probably go through some scanning. Who are the right fit? Are the kids gonna like them? The most probably it's not about liking, it's about the trust. Would you leave your kids with that babysitter, right? It's a trust, it's a human nature. So number one thing that hiring managers are looking for, am I able to trust you? Can I leave you with my team? Can I delegate? Can I put you on my out of office reply later on if I want to? Are you capable of handling the team when I'm not there? Right? Things like that I'm looking for. So you need to look approachable. You need to make sure that, you fit into the team environment. So for that, you need to have that humor as well. So how do you diffuse that tension in interview? You don't want to be sitting in there and just just think about, okay, I just wanted to wrap it up. I just want another answers, another questions, right? You add the humor on it. And I'm going to teach you techniques. So I posted something, I think 2-3 days ago about the long-term goal. And I'm going to give you the real thing that I've done it personally as a job seeker when I lost my job, when I got laid off, when I lost the job. And I've done this myself. I've applied this technique and it works. But in order to work, you need to judge your audience. All right. But you got to make sure that you can't fake it. You got to practice this. Long-term goal. Someone asked me, what's your long-term goal? It was a panel interview, right? Panel interview, 3 or 4 people. Panel interview, what's your long-term goal? So within that, let's say, for example, someone asks you, what's your long-term goal? Now, you don't know. You don't know what kind of process company has in place, right? So what happens is, if you actually tell them the higher ambitious goal, then you might be seen as you're too ambitious. You probably are not the right fit. You're just using that as a stepping stone to go up there, right? But if you go at the bottom of I don't have a goal, you might be judged wow, the person without the goal, seriously, do I need them in the team? But here's what I've tried, because listen, I was in the management role, okay? And when someone asked me for a long-term goal, what could possibly be? Yeah, I want to be VP someday. I want to be director someday, right? But then this is my strategy. It worked well with me. Whenever someone asked me, what's your long-term goal? I said, I want to do exactly what are you doing to me right now? I want to take your seat and hopefully you would be promoted a little bit upper than what you are right now. And I smiled. I did that. I pulled that stunt. Guess what happened? They all laughed. And I said, okay, let me go back. And then I changed the framework, which is, it stayed there. That was a humor on it. But you know what? I wanted to be there someday. I wanted to let them know. But I said, listen, I want to be. And then there's a framework, which is I want to be subject matter expert. And I want to be mentor within the team. And I wanted to take on more project, right? Why am I saying this is because I'm not clear. Honestly, I don't know what kind of career path that they have. Maybe do you know that companies have their own policy internally. So if you are going to get the role, you might have to stick on that role for a couple of years, couple of months before you move on to the different stepping stone. And you know what? And that's where you need to draw the line. You need to understand the process of, well, is it all right if I ask questions? So that's when there's the next trick now. Next trick I'm going to give you. First was adding a humor and putting a framework, giving them a real answer. I want to be mentor. I want to be like, I want to hone on to more project. I want to know the stakeholders. I want to make sure that I nurture the relationship outside of this department. I want to get to know people. And then let me ask you. And then you don't wait until they actually ask you at the end of the interview, do you have any questions? You don't wait. Every questions, you ask them question back. This is how you do it on long term that I've now answered that questions for them. I say, by the way, can you tell me about the policy? How does that work? What is the career path? Let's say for that particular role that I'm applying for right now, do you have a career path within the department where people go from here in order to go to that leadership role or in order to go somewhere else? How, how soon they can go, and, what are the criteria? Can you explain me more on it? What are you doing right now is getting the informations plus understanding the career path. And I'll tell you why it's really important. What if you are using that as a stepping stone and you want to move quite quickly in 6 months from now or 1 year from now, right? But if they tell you, no, you got to be on that role for 2 years, guess what? You stuck with that. And that actually happened to one of my clients recently. So the client was in the contact center environment, and the client wanted to move on to the big five. Client got the offer, but what happened was when the client was actually going in there with the information, so, okay, what's going to happen with the role and everything, probation itself was like more than 6 months, and then you can't even move into the different department until you're done, and it would be the career path has to be redefined. So, and then client said, you know what, I'm just using this as a stepping stone, so I'm not sure if I want to switch it. I said, well, ball is in your court. Nothing's going to change. Contact center here, contact center there. Just because they're a bigger brand, that does not mean that, you would be moving quickly. There are so many red tapes on it, right? So she did that in homework, right? And she dropped out. The offer was, she didn't accept the offer, but there's a strategy to drop out. Don't burn the bridge, right? So by asking those questions, what happens is you're getting the informations, plus guess what's happening? You're not talking a lot. You are, if there's 15 questions, they're going to go bam, 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 bam within 1 hour. You know what? You're just going with the 5 questions. That's a part of strategy, right? Because you still want to go ahead with the interview process, but you want to understand the process as well. I want you to feel this as a fit for one another. No, you are judging them. Are they the right employer? Do you want to work for them? It has to be both ways. Stop sitting in there and just being an order taker and just go, okay, well, yeah, okay, this. No, you got to keep on asking questions. Now, the other things that I did, here's what I did. I had a lot of gap. So I was laid off. I didn't find the job right away, obviously, right? And then I didn't want to go back to workforce right away because I wanted to do some volunteering and stuff like that, which I did. I traveled and I did the volunteering, okay? So then I knew the question's going to come up. For those people who have a gap, type in 3 if you have a gap on the chat. If you have a gap on a resume right now, type in 3. I'm going to teach you other technique. Do you have a gap right now? Employment gap right now? Type in 3. It's probably going to be delayed. I'm going to wait. It's probably delaying. All right, Nisha Adhikari. All right, so there is a gap. I'm going to teach you humor. All right. So people, the hiring manager asked me oh, I see that you had a gap for a certain month or something, right? And I put the humor on it again. I said, Yeah, I had a gap because I didn't find you guys. Where were you all my life? Like for past 6 months, where were you? Exactly. This is what exactly I did. I'm not even kidding. And then I said, you know what? Yes, I do have a gap. And this is what I did during that gap. So I put it together what I was doing in the gap, right? Like, when I had a gap. So I did the volunteering. I did so much nonprofit giving back, and I learned a lot. I wanted to wait for the right type of role. And when I saw this, you're on my bucket list. And when I saw this, I jumped in, and here's why. And go with that strategy of I've done this and relate into job description. All right. So that's the other thing. Now, what else? What else I have in the, let's see here. And again, talking back to, okay, I want you to apply this, okay? When you're talking about the long-term goal, there, a lot of companies, they have the budget for courses and certifications and everything. I want you to ask them. And you are getting information out of them, but at the same time, you're genuinely wanted to move up the ladder. Then you can ask, okay, well, can I ask you something? With the type of role that I'm applying for right now, with the longer term that I am thinking of going into this area, what are the chances that I would get in there within that time frame, given that I've taken these kind of courses and certification later on, because I love to learn more and more, and I potentially would upgrade my skills. And what are the policy around that? Right? When you do that, you know what? They can let you know, oh yeah. And that comes into the total compensation package, which is like, hey, we offer you the upgrade for free. We will reimburse you. So you understand those things as well. And the other thing I want you to try, when you know that you got an interview, most probably, and you know what, 99% of the time that you would get the email from HR, probably copied, managers going to be copied, and you're going to be, people are going to tell you who are you going to have interview with. I want you to go back now and stalk their profile. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so moving on to the conversational piece now. How are you going to move on to the conversational from just integration, right? They're just asking questions. Now, how are you going to get that? This is how you're going to go. You're going to go stalk them, the hiring manager, everywhere in Google and LinkedIn. Look at the profile. So, for example, when I did that interviews, right, I would stalk, and then I would go back and say, I saw that, and I'm like, I'm just talking in there, like I'm talking in an interview, some questions right after. I would say, by the way, I noticed that you actually came from that background. Let's say you came from TELUS, for example, you came from TELUS contact center and you went to the banking. Did you find any differences, when it comes to the tools, technology, or environment, anything like that, right? What am I doing here? I am actually letting them know, like, especially the hiring manager, I've done some research and I really want to know, right? If you are not coming from the traditional background, right, you ask, hey, I've done the research. How is that working for you? Like, how is that working for you, right? So you're letting the hiring manager know you know them, kind of like that, and dropping the conversations. And one time, the hiring manager was doing yoga or something like that, I found out, right? So like, you see on the full thing, and you literally slide in there. What are, in a free time, in a free time, so tell me about yourself. Have them at hello. Tell me about yourself. They're going to ask you, tell me about yourself, right? You're going to go with the elevator pitch for 2 minutes or something like that. You're going to talk. And you know what? On my free time, I love to do yoga. Put it in there. Now, the hiring manager, right? It could be the hiring manager. That's a hiring manager I've researched, and I purposely would put it in there. I love to do yoga. If you'd love to do yoga, say it. Nobody or I've even tried, I always wanted to take on that class, and I see that, do you have any recommendation for me? Now you got to relate, right? You got to relate. So you're trying to have that human interaction, connections. So the things like that matters. if you sit down there and just go with the interview after like questions after questions and questions, you can be so tired. Plus, you're not getting information out of them. Why wait until last minute, until they ask you, hey, do you have any questions? People are wrapping up. People are in rush. They probably have made up their mind by then, to be honest, as a hiring manager, right? They already know they want you or not. But by engaging with them, by giving them that, hey, I've done research, and I'm really interested, I really want to know. And you can also ask them, when they're talking about, let's say, when they're talking about, give me an example, let's say, give me an example of things that you've done that drove the result. You can talk about it. And then after you're done with the example, you can start with this. The questions. You don't have to wait until end. You can say, you know what, I'm very performance driven. I've always been motivated by targets and numbers. And I understand that you have targets and numbers as well. How are the results going to be measured? How are the success going to be measured? Could you please tell me more on that? Right? Now you are moving away from the interview to conversation pace. How's that, right? I want you to ask questions strategically to understand the process. Also moving on to the conversation stage as well. And smile all the time. I'm giving you an example, okay, right now. Okay, I'm smiling right now. I'm talking, I'm looking at the camera, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, right? Now let me change my body posture, all right? I'm gonna change it. I'm just gonna go like this. Yeah, that's right. I'm very performance driven and I've done this. Look at my energy. See the change in energy? What I'm giving back, I'm going to get back. You got to light up a room. You got to go out there full-fledged. Like, I want you to think about you're there. If you are, so you are there in a dating world. For those of you who have dated, I want you to feel like I want to date that person. I want to know everything about that person. I want to impress that person. I want to be by myself. Why can't you be by yourself? Like, be yourself, be authentic. Don't overdo it. But these things, guys, it's not going to come in right away. You got to really practice it. And the best way to do it is record yourself, put the video together, move your hand, move your body, and you know what? Let it go. Let it breathe, let it go. The interview should not be one-way street. I'm a firm believer in that, right? As a hiring manager, I always loved when people are asking me questions, right questions. And as a job seeker, I always wanted the answer from the employer just to make sure that I know I want to work for them. All right. Let me see if you have any questions. I'm going to go and see if I have anything else, but you can put the question, guys, in there if you have any questions. Yosla is watching from Toronto. I think comments are coming in, but it's not loaded up. All right, guys. So you know what? The other thing is I want you to ask, there's always going to be those questions like what motivates you? Tell me about the time that you got, you were motivated. And I want you to ask you this to the management. I want you to ask them like, this is what motivates me. How do you motivate your people, your direct reports? Right? How do you do it? Do you have some team building activities? Do you go out quarterly? Do you go out monthly? Now you're moving into the conversation mode, right? You are absolutely okay to ask those questions because you want to know what kind of management style you're working with it, right? So you gotta work with the manager who are a people person. So you gotta know what kind of management you're going to be putting into. So these are the questions you must ask to make it from that interview mode to the conversational mode. I hope you really understand that interview is not about sitting in there just answering the questions, being an order taker. Take a full ownership of it, but you got to strategically know what to ask. Don't wait until the last minute. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the tell me about yourself. That's very, very important. That's kind of like, you can name it. Some people say that's your elevator pitch. Some people say that that's your value propositions. That's your career summary. You name it. You know yourself better than someone else, but I'll tell you this. A lot of coaching I do for interview, people start to have a same tell me about yourself. Stop doing it. Tell me about yourself changes from job descriptions. The core aspect stays the same, but you are going to sprinkle the word. It's a part of job descriptions on a tell me about yourself. Now, interview is the same thing too. Just like the resume, it's not about what you did. It's about what employers want. Exactly the same thing in interviews. So if you're going with a strategy of like, I have 15 examples, I'm going to give this example all the time. I'm not going to change a damn thing. It's not going to work. Okay. So when I interview people, let's say, when I interview people for last time when I was doing the interview coaching for a couple of people, some were going for risk, some were going for construction, things like that, engineering and stuff like that. They kept on saying, tell me about yourself was the same thing over and over. No, because it all depends on the job description. So, if you're applying for the core aspect of, let's say, risk, you got to talk risk and tell me about yourself. You got to talk and sprinkle the language and jargon that job descriptions is looking for. Exactly the same thing. The core aspect, the industry doesn't change, your niche market doesn't change, years of experience doesn't change. But when you're talking about tell me about yourself, the sprinkling word here and there is going to change, and that's based on the job descriptions. And I teach all of that in my interview coaching program. And honestly, it's interview is something you don't just take one lesson and you feel like I'm a pro at it. No, it takes some time. It takes a couple of sessions, but you get the framework, but you got to go out there and practice it. If you're one of those right now sitting and thinking that I'm going to get to the interview and I know I'm going to flaunt it, it's not going to work, because you're going to have that strategy from day one. You have to practice. It takes time. If someone interviews me right now, I don't even look at anything. Let's say if I go to, the webinar podcast, I don't look at the deck. I don't have to look at the notes, anything like that, because I talk about it all the time. So I don't need any script. I don't need anything, right? It takes years of practice, but I was not like this. It took me years of practice. As a hiring manager, I've seen the other side as well, right? So you got to make sure that you practice, and practice makes it perfect. And you can do this if you follow the right strategy and right framework. All right. So I think I'm going to leave it as that. It's been pleasure been here on a live with you. And I'm not sure if I have any questions, anything like that. Let's see. I have one question. If they ask me, what are the strength and weakness? How can you answer them? What's a good answering point? I'm a big believer on, when someone asks you for weakness, I'm a big believer on give me the real weakness, not a BS weakness, which actually shows it indirectly you're hinting towards the strength. Own it. My YouTube channel has it, how to answer it. So for me personally, I really had that weakness. I still have that weakness. I'm trying to overcome it, right? The way that I answered the weakness question was not my strength. Not my strength at all. I said, listen, as a management, I've had the situations that, sometimes I found that I was being a control freak. And as a management person, I need to delegate. I need to be able to trust people and delegate my work. And by me not doing it, it was taking so much of toll on my, work-life balance. So here's what I did. So I give them, again, when it comes to weakness, right? Give them a real weakness. And here's what I did. Your action matters. Always give an example. The action matter. Here's what I did to do it. So I then later on, I started training my senior people who are ready to go on to the leadership bucket, which is future talent. I gave them my work and I was there if they needed the guide. And you know what? In a way, I'm promoting them to the next level. Plus, I am delegating. I'm freeing up some things from my plate as well. It worked great for me because now I'm freeing my time to coach my direct reports. I'm not spending much of time on doing the admin task that I could free it up, right? Those are my real weakness. I was acting as a control freak, right? So as a leader, it's no, you got to learn how to delegate, right? So I said, this is what I did. And I still tend to do that sometimes, but I'm self-aware of it and I try not to. And then you wrap it up around that, right? So it's always lesson learned. Always go back with a lesson learned. The lesson learned from that was this. And you know what? I'm working through it. It's never fixed. So I'm a control freak. I have to do it all, right? It's never fixed. But listen, I'm self-aware of it. I read books, leadership books. I have books all over. I read, so things like that. But give them a real weakness. Adam, you can go and look into my YouTube channel right there. It's there. And conflict, you know what I started with? I know it comes up all the time. So I just go like, listen, conflicts, it doesn't scare me. If you're one of those, I'm an extrovert, okay? If I'm an extrovert, conflict does not scare me at all, right? But like the way you say it matters, okay? So you know what? I welcome conflict because why conflict happens, I think, is when we're not willing to listen to the other people, when we are not willing to understand why they're saying, that's when it happens, because we shut ourselves down. It's human nature. We shut ourselves down and say, why should I listen to that person? I'm always right? So when you let that ego go and try to welcome people, hey, tell me more. You know what helps on a conflict? When you are having conflict, all you got to do is why do you think that? Tell me more. Keep on asking questions. That's a coaching 101 rule. Ask questions so you can understand. Ask questions, though, to understand, not to most people listen to judge, to respond, but there's a difference. Ask question to understand and see aha moment. Oh, that's why. Conflict only happens when people feel that they're not being heard and people feel like their ideas are not valued, right? So it happens in the work environment. So here's what I deal with it in one situation. There's one instant. Now, you can talk about it, but don't stop there. Always give an example, right? Whether I ask you or not as a hiring manager, you know what, provide me the evidence where you've done it, right? I don't have to ask you, how do you deal with conflict? You know what, this is what I do. I welcome it. And one instance in the project, what happened was I was a project lead, for example. I was a project lead and I went in there and I started to literally, say, okay, we need to fix this. And obviously I got the pushback. There was a lot of conflict. And listen, those who are project manager, anyone project manager right now? Project manager, say number three, project manager, number three. So, if you're in project, your job is to go and say, there's something wrong with your kitchen. Who likes that? No one likes that. No one likes that. You know what? You call that skeleton out and say, there's something wrong with your project. I'm going to fix it. No one likes it, right? You got to always understand what's in for me attitude from people. I'm going to fix it. What's in for me, right? You got to be very good at negotiating and influencing people. So the way, Nishant is 3. So the way that you would resolve the conflict is trying to understand before you actually go out there and fully go out there. And this is what you do. You got to understand, get the buy-in. Have you heard about change? How do you do the change management? I want you to Google ADKAR model, ADKAR ADKAR model. Those whoever's not aware of it, Google ADKAR model. How do you manage the change? People are resistant to change, and conflict happens when you're trying to actually change something on them, right? First, you gotta raise an awareness and all those things formalize there, how to manage the conflict, and then you get the buy-in, right? You need to hear them for conflict. You got to invite on the table. Let's resolve it, right? Can you imagine all our leaders in the world? They just go like, I don't like this country. I don't like this country. They have a conflict, but they talk, right? Communication is the key. But when you communicate, it's always about providing evidence, what's in for them, and welcoming. And you know what? You can sometimes agree to disagree, but what matters is how you patch up that relationship. This is what I do kind of thing, right? Give an example. Here's what I did. And you know what? It was solved. The lesson learned from that for me was never go and propose the solution without understanding, right? So conflict is something that I welcome it. I don't avoid it. And I tackle it in a real time. I don't wait until 1 month. Right? So that's how you answer it, depending on the industry. Now, again, it's always going back to the job description, guys. This might not be the right answer for you if you're applying for something else, right? So you got to look at the job descriptions and see what are the strength requirement. Is it conflict resolutions? You better talk about conflict resolutions. Read the book, take the course. LinkedIn Learning has so much courses on it. Go ahead and learn it. So it's all depending on the job description. So the interview is never about like, you know what, I'm going to go with this answer. It's going to apply to everything. No, always reflect back to the job description. Hopefully that makes sense. So Syed, on that, you have everything on my YouTube channel. What you should ask after. You should ask like, you know, things like, so I already gave you a couple of questions in there, like, you know, I'll put it in there. You can say what kind of rewards and recognition program you have. How are the people being incented? How often the performance appraisal happens? Do you have a career planning path? Do you sit down and coach? How often you coach? It all depends on your industry, right? So there's no hard and fast rule that you must ask this question, but you gotta ask based on the industry, right? So So one of the examples, so the funny part here, I'm going to give you one real example. I was interviewing for nonprofit. I moved to the new city. And what happened was they gave me, they were questioning me and I did it. But then there was a test after. And test was all case study based on, okay, if the job seeker comes into you and they're like, you know, they're having issues and they were fired before, you know, and they don't want to work and they just have that low self-esteem and everything. Now you're going to have to go and sell the employers. How do you sell it? Who are the one in the area that you want to go and then vouch for that job seeker, right? And I'm like, I'm different. I came from the different background from the corporate world. Plus, I don't know the location, new locations, right? And I just sat down there and it was a case study. I did it and I passed. I got the offer. I ended up working there. But it was so hard for me not knowing the location. So do your research. So ask, right, on interview. So I asked on test. Before they did the test, I said, like, you know what, am I going to be a measure on, like, you know, knowing this location? Because you know that I'm new to these areas. So hopefully you're not going to hold me back because I'm new to this area, because am I allowed to Google the information? They're like, yeah, right? So ask the questions during the interview to clarify those questions. So one thing I've never want you to leave interview if they're not telling you what's the next step. Usually if they're really good at hiring, if they know what they're doing, they should give you the next step expectation. They should say, well, we're going to wrap up interviews in 2 weeks and we're going to get back to you if you're the right candidate by email or by phone, whatever. They will give you the time. But if they don't, it's your responsibility to make sure that you ask questions, because that's really, really important for you to follow up, because you don't want to follow up right after a week when they've not even wrapped up interviews, right? So you wait. After thank you email, you wait and only follow up after they're done, right? Like, you know, after 3 weeks after. So this is why it's very important for you not to be ghosted, right? To just sit there and say, well, how are they going to call me? Is it email? Did I make it? Did I not make it? These are the questions you should be asking if they don't tell you what's the next step. And if you have not heard back during that timeline, follow up 3 times. 3 is the number and let it go. That's all you can do, right? You've done it all. If you need any help in interview coaching, I am there. I can help you. And other than that, let me know if you have any questions. And I'm taking some of the newcomers and laid off folks in my program, which is one size does not fit all silver package. It includes everything from job search. I teach the real job search techniques. We're going to write the real resume based on the job posting. I'm going to teach you the interview based on the job posting you want to apply. We're going to build a LinkedIn profile based on that. Everything would be the real one, real scenario. I'm going to teach you all of that in that program. It's 4 weeks program for you, and I'll be there for mentorship and support for review afterwards as well. If you want to be in that program, the spots are open for you for next month. Go ahead and book an appointment if you have any questions. It's on Teaching Do. Book a discovery call with me if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to give you the sneak peek on a program and see we're the right fit or not. I only work with few, but it's one-to-one, customized based on your industry. I don't do the Facebook group. I don't do the group sessions. I just do one-to-one, fully you and me together, Zoom live. All right, so subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any feedback, send me message. I have open message on a LinkedIn. Bye-bye, guys.